Alafia, Laroye, Hotep, Kamusta. Welcome to the Mind of Ro page. I am Ia Obajaguna, also known as Yaya Reinhadas Caveras. I am the Queen of Skulls. So today I'm going to make a video on red flags. Someone that you just met, like if you're in a dating field, will end up being abusive in a relationship with you. So knowing these red flags, knowing these signs is going to save you from a lot of hardship and turmoil. So before we get started, my last video was on the sex war that's going on, as in men talking all kinds of crap about women, women talking all kinds of crap about men. So is it empowering or is it toxic? If you want to hear what I have to say about the sex war going on right now, go ahead and check the last video I made. And don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel at Mind of Ro. I also have a TikTok, Instagram, and a Twitter, also known as X now, at Mind of Ro, and a Facebook business page at The Mind of Ro. And I also do readings. So if you would like to get a reading done, go ahead and private message me either on my Facebook page or on my Instagram page. Okay, so here are 10 red flags in the beginning that you could tell that somebody is most likely going to abuse you if you get caught up in a relationship with them. So number one is controlling behavior. What sucks about it is sometimes it's not always very noticeable. Obviously, if it's extreme, obviously if you, I have a history of being in abusive relationships in the past, so I used to have somebody who didn't even want me to work. So there's a difference between a partner that's a provider and saying you don't have to work versus a person who is trying to keep you from working because they don't want you to have your own money, because they don't want you to have freedom, because they want to control you with their money because you would have nowhere else to go. Controlling behavior would also be like you're not allowed to spend your money on anything unless he approves of it. Another example would be that you're not allowed to hang out with your friends. You're not allowed to hang out with co-workers or family members or anything like that. Basically, you're not allowed to leave the house or talk to anybody. Now, don't get it twisted, because I'm sure there's even some abusers watching this. Now, don't get it twisted and make it seem like that you could behave this like. What I'm trying to say is sometimes what abusive people would do would try to twist words is kind of what I'm saying, you know, is like they'll try to make it seem like you're the one being abusive because you're telling them to not go. Hold on, someone call me. Okay, stop calling me. Excuse me, sorry about that. Somebody kept calling me on the phone. Shoot, what was I? So people will try to twist your reality, basically, is try to make it seem like you're the one that's abusing them when they're really the one abusing you. Because let's say that person is doing something like, for example, pushing boundaries and going out with, let's say, somebody they're clearly attracted to and trying to pin it on you and act like you're the one abusing them because you're telling them they shouldn't go out. And then they're like, hey, see, you're the one that's abusive. So look out for these kind of signs where basically, like, you know that they're controlling you, but then they have the freedom to do whatever they want. But then if you ever do something, then they try to make it seem like, or if you ever say anything about it, then they seem like you're the one that's controlling, and it's not them, if that makes any sense. Another one would be like a high amount of jealousy. I want to specifically say a high amount of jealousy. The reason why I'm saying that is because a little bit of jealousy is normal in relationships. If you don't feel a little jealous sometimes now and then, that means you might be a little too emotionally numb. So it's okay to feel, it's normal to feel a little bit like that in relationships, but it gets to the point to where it's really, really extreme, to where like you can't go anywhere, you can't see anybody, you can't even talk to your own family members or visit your family members, and that's kind of pushing it a little too far. Jealousy only up to an extent is okay. You know, it's going to be normal. Like if you have a man and you don't want to go hanging out with some female friend that's a little too flirtatious, keep an eye on that, because I've been abused before and I've been called jealous when it's really just simply me setting healthy boundaries. So when I talk about jealousy in relationships, there's a healthy amount of it. Now, if your partner's doing things like crossing boundaries and doing things that's clearly crossing boundaries and then you behave in a jealous way, don't let an abuser pinpoint it on you and try to make it seem like you're the issue when they are the ones doing things that's clearly straight up disrespectful in a relationship. So that's why I want to just be very detailed about when I talk about jealousy. It's normal to feel a little jealousy in relationships, but to the extreme, if you're constantly put in a place to where you feel like you're constantly jealous all the time because you're constantly pushing really personal boundaries, and then they make it seem like you're the abuser. If you feel like you keep going through that, that's an issue. If you feel like you're not even doing anything ever, and you know damn straight you're not doing anything with anybody, but they make scenarios up in their head and making it seem like you are doing something and they're constantly jealous, those are some red flags when it comes to like looking out for jealousy. But like I said earlier, it's okay to have a tiny bit of jealousy in relationships, because if you don't, you might be a little emotionally numb or just absent-minded, not paying attention. So don't beat yourself up. You're supposed to feel really tight with your partner. That's okay. When it gets to really extreme, when you're feeling like this all the time, the question is your partner using jealousy or behaving in a way to control you, using it in jealousy? Are you pushed in a way to constantly feel jealous because they are constantly pushing boundaries? Stop calling it. That's just blatant disrespect, if you know what I'm saying. Number 3 is quick involvement. Now, I want to always like touch base on like talk about two ends of each statement I'm going to say, so you guys don't misconstrue what I'm saying. Quick involvement basically means that you guys are not on the same level of attachment. Like maybe one is ready to move in and they're ready, and the other one's not ready to. Maybe one really has strong feelings, the other one doesn't have strong feelings. Now it's told, like I considered a child of Oshun, so I believe in love. I believe that you can really meet somebody and you guys just like head over heels over each other, and relationships just happen really quick when you're just like, oh my God, this is the one. The red flag is when it's not equal. The red flag is that you're getting like these weird feelings in your gut, like I don't feel like this is right, and this person is love bombing you. So love bombing is basically showering you with gifts, acting totally sweet, saying I want to marry you, saying I want to be with you forever, but then another part of them isn't acting in accordance to what they're saying. Another part of them is constantly acting distant, constantly acting emotionally unavailable, constantly acting like they're still searching for other people, but yet still saying that they want to be with you. And it's really confusing. If you feel like you're confused, that's a red flag that the quick involvement is not true love. The quick involvement is actually called love bombing. The next one is number 4 is isolation. Obviously, we should have rules in relationships. Like I was with an abusive person who thought he could just stay out all freaking night and not come home, and he would be out there partying. He used to do drugs and stuff like that, and not come home till like the next afternoon. That's messed up. That's not okay. So clearly, you telling your partner don't go out like that and please come home at night, that is not you isolating. So now let's talk about isolation. Isolation is basically, you can't go to work, you can't visit your family, you can't see friends, they are slowly manipulating you into not speaking to anyone who is considered a support for you. Friends, family, co-workers, stuff like that. Basically, anyone who's telling you the truth about your relationship and saying, hey, this isn't okay, and then your partner finds out they're saying these things to you and they want to isolate you from them, because they want to have you all to themselves and be able to manipulate you and tell you what they want you to hear and tell you what they want you to think. And they don't want anybody else affecting your thoughts. They don't want anybody waking you up to who this person really is. So the whole point of isolation is basically to brainwash you and to believe that you are just crazy and you don't know what you're talking about. You're in a healthy relationship, and everybody else that loves you or who you think loves you is just jealous and wants you to take you away from your partner or whatever. So that's what I mean by isolation. The reason why I'm saying this is because if you're watching this, you could be being abused. And a lot of people who are abused get it twisted because they're being gaslit by their abusive partner. So that's why I'm talking about both ends of each subject I'm going to talk about is, are you the one being abused, or are you the one being convinced by your abuser that you're being the abuser when it's really them abusing you? Or are you the abuser, you know? So the next one is verbal abuse. I think that's pretty obvious. If they're calling you all kinds of bees and hoes and this and that and name calling, and they can't communicate clearly with you, they're not mature enough to be able to communicate their actual emotions in a mature way. Clearly, this person cannot be emotionally in an emotional relationship. Romantic relationships are emotional. If they cannot process their emotions without calling you names, throwing things, and acting crazy and psycho, then I think that's pretty obvious that person is not ready to be in a emotionally responsible relationship, if you know what I'm saying. So if you've already seen the flags of the person, let's say I had a friend one time who told me she was in the car with some guy she just met, and I guess something happened in the car where he started freaking out, like in traffic, like screaming and yelling, and rolled down his window and screaming and freaked out. And I've been with some people like that. Even if the emotional outburst isn't out on you, but let's say you just met the person and you see how they are emotionally freaking out at other people, and you know the situation is very small. The reason why I'm saying that is because I understand we have emotions. I'm not saying emotions are demonic or wrong. You should be shameful. We should not be shameful of our emotions. The reason why I'm saying this is because we do have a right to be angry if somebody disrespects us, abuses us, uses us, lies to us, steals from us. We have a right to respond emotionally. It's just human nature. We're not perfect. We're not robots. So let me make that clear. My point is this: if the person makes it pretty clear that they can't even handle something so minute in life, like let's say somebody gets their order wrong at a restaurant and they freak out and flip out and can't get over it, that's a red flag that later on in a relationship, that's how they're going to treat you. So just look out for that. Look out for the way they act in traffic. Look out for the way they act in restaurants. Look out for the way they act with others, because most likely that's how they're going to act with you. So the next one is blaming others, also called blame shifting or deflecting. Deflecting is a gaslighting kind of like a word used for basically if you're having a conversation with somebody and you're like, hey, I don't like it when you do this. And the response is, well, I don't like it when you do this. That's taking no accountability. That's taking no responsibility that you brought up the conversation about that person. Like, hey, I have an issue with you doing this. But instead of them saying, hey, you're right, I'm wrong, you shouldn't be doing that, they point the blame and try to get all the attention off of them and say, hey, it's either your fault or it's your mom's fault or it's whoever they're with, somebody else's fault. It's never their fault. So these are red flags. You're dealing with somebody who does not take any accountability for their actions. A person who doesn't take any accountability for their actions aren't going to fix their actions because they don't see any reason why they should. And how are you ever supposed to resolve any issues with anybody who feels like none of their actions need to be fixed at all, and it's everybody else's fault? So look out for that. If you feel like you can't have a conversation with somebody because they feel like they're taking no accountability and they don't want to be aware of it, and then they point blame at you and act like it's your fault, they're gonna keep running you in circles, and it's not gonna be resolved, and you're gonna keep running into this, and you can't be in a relationship with somebody like that. You can't fix anything with a person who behaves that way. So if you feel like you're running in circles and a person keeps making you, feel like, oh my God, I keep having the same conversation, it's not being fixed, this person's pointing blame everywhere else, do you want to deal with that long term? I know I don't. Okay, next one is the person clearly has history of abuse. If you talk to them and they said, oh yeah, and you ask them, have you ever been to jail before? And they're like, oh yeah, I went to jail before because I beat up my ex. But I'm better now. And they just got out of jail 6 months ago. You should probably not be with that person. It takes more than 6 months for somebody to heal. I'm not saying that people who used to be abusive don't heal. They do. But if they clearly if they clearly told you they have a history of abusing people, if you know people who know them and they clearly contacted you and say, hey, watch out for this person because they have a habit of abusing, beating up, cheating, whatever it is, stop ignoring it. I was with somebody who the excuse I always got from him was, oh, they're just jealous of us. Oh, she just wants to be with me. That's the only reason why. don't fall for it. Don't fall for the games. If you keep getting multiple people telling you, hey, this person has a history of doing this, please run away. Please run. Go. Just leave it alone. Take it as a message from the universe speaking to you through other people, okay? Go away. Go. Save yourself. Next one is they have no respect for boundaries. Like I was talking about earlier, boundaries. If you made it pretty clear on what your boundaries are, and they decide they want to cross it anyways, and they have all the great, wonderful excuses to keep crossing your boundaries, they don't respect your boundaries. I don't care how great the excuse is. They don't respect your boundaries, and they will do everything they can to cross your boundaries so they can just do what they want. And every time you confront them, they're going to be like, yeah, well, this is that. This basically is telling you that your boundaries don't matter. And you're going to either have to A, leave him or her, or B, if you're going to be with them, you're going to deal with this person crossing boundaries. And from my experience, I've learned to heal from a lot of very traumatic relationships. Once a person makes it pretty clear that they are not going to respect your boundaries and keep repeating over and over again, stop wasting your time. Stop falling for it. Stop falling for the head games and the emotional games and the, oh, you don't know what you're talking about, it's not even that big of a deal game that they play. They've been doing this a long time. They don't care what you think. They don't care how you feel. They don't care what your boundaries are. I don't care how great the excuse is. If you're allowed to have boundaries, people who don't have respect for boundaries act like you're the problem for having boundaries. You're allowed to say no. You're allowed to say, I don't like the way this feels. You're allowed to say, I don't want to have this in my relationship. And for anybody who says you have no right to feel this way, it invalidates your emotions, invalidates your feelings, is someone who has no respect for your feelings. Feelings are involved in romantic relationships. And a person who does not take accountability for nourishing your feelings in you them does not need to be in a relationship. Straight up. Next one, mood swings. Don't you hate it when you meet somebody and you're like, oh my God, this is like the best person ever. And then the next day they're like this freaking horrible, mean, moody, angry person that you're kind of emotionally and physically scared of. And then the next day they're like this most perfect, sweetest person ever. And you're like, oh, they must have just had a bad day. And they're just, and then all of a sudden they're like a really, really sweet, perfect person for a week. And then all of a sudden there's this really mean, abusive, horrible person. And it's always an excuse like, oh, I'm distressed. Oh, it's just from work. Oh, it's because I'm still mad at you from a past relationship. Not past relationship. I'm still mad at you from a past argument we had. I'm not get over it yet. Or whatever excuses they have. You don't know what you're going to get. If you ever meet somebody where you don't know what you're going to get, and you feel like, you fall in love with this other version of themselves, but then you always have to watch out and feel like, oh, I'm scared to come home because this person's probably going to, like, who knows if this person's going to be like that mean version of themselves. That's called mood swings. That's called a person who cannot control their own emotions and control who they are and whatever they have going through in their life. I don't care what they're going through. I don't care if the most tragic thing is happening in their life. They are not allowed to take their pain out on you. It is not okay for anybody to take their personal pain and stress out on you. It's not okay. So stop letting that slide and stop allowing people to convince you that, oh, I just had a bad day, so it's okay. So it's okay for you to abuse me because you had a bad day? No, it's not okay. The next one is gaslighting. Gaslighting, have you heard? I hate being gaslit. Freaking hate it, yo. So obviously I'm a little traumatized from gaslighting because I was in an abusive relationship with a person who constantly gaslit me. And to be honest with you, if you're with a habitual gaslighter, it could be, and you're with them for years, and that person's been abusing you, and they're narcissistic. It's one of the hardest things to heal from. It can be very hard to heal from. So I've made videos, all kinds of. I made a video called Fallacies. And these are all different examples of gaslighting techniques, and I will share a link with this video in the comments below, or in the description below, depending on where you're watching this video from, so you can have more detailed descriptions of what fallacies are. Because I don't want to go too much in detail on that right now because I already made a video on it. So gaslighting, have you ever talked to somebody and you feel like the conversation is going good, but all of a sudden you just get really agitated and you can't put your finger on it. And you're like, why do I keep getting agitated with this person? Because you're being gaslit. A lot of times when you're being gaslit, the person can keep a very straight look on their face. And basically what it is, it's every time you speak, they're trying to throw you off course. That's what gaslighting is. Every time you hold that person accountable, they throw you off course. They're trying to basically take no accountability for their actions when you call them out. They're basically trying to use every word you say against you. They're basically trying to twist the words that you're saying and trying to make it seem like you said something that you didn't say. They don't want to take any accountability for anything that you're saying. So what they'll do is they'll get you caught up in basically what gaslighting does, it gets you caught up in the concept of you constantly explaining, because they don't want to take accountability for you saying, hey, you're being a dick. This is why you're being a dick. Stop being a dick. You know? But they'll be like, yeah, well, you just said this one word and I think like that one word's wrong. So I'm going to get you off track of the conversation and get you wrapped up in that one word instead of we actually discussing the situation that's happening. And then all of a sudden you're like, well, how do I keep getting caught up in another conversation that has nothing to do with my point? If you keep getting like ran around in circles, like every time you make a point and they keep trying to twist you off the point into something else, just to try to invalidate what you're saying to them because they don't want to take any accountability for what you're saying, like as if they don't want you to be right and they want to do everything to prove you wrong because they don't want to be held accountable for what they're doing or saying. It basically throw you off track, and then it never gets resolved. Because if it gets resolved, they would have to admit that they're wrong. They would have to admit that they need to stop doing that, and they don't want to. So they're going to throw you off course and get you into another conversation that has nothing to do with point A, for example. They're going to have you talk about point Z that has nothing to do with point A. That's gaslighting. So I haven't made a video on gaslighting in a while. I probably should. It can be a little difficult to deal with. It's all abusers will gaslight. It's a very typical trait in abusive behavior. So please check out my video on fallacies, on different fallacies that people use when they're gaslighting, so you know how to respond to them. The best way to deal with that is knowing what fallacy they're using and knowing how to respond and correct it to be able to bring them back to subject A and not be swayed off course to be talking about something, and then next thing you know, weeks go by and you're like, we never resolved that issue. Because they don't want to resolve the issue. They want to throw you off. So that's it, y'all. Those are my red flags. If you meet somebody and they're doing this from the beginning, I'm not saying that everyone's perfect. I'm not saying that if somebody has like one of these things and all of a sudden you shouldn't be with them. I'm not saying that. Nobody is perfect, okay? And neither are you. Because I bet everybody watching this has at least one of those issues going on. I would like to make a video on the concept of jealousy. That would be a good one to talk about, because I think we need to stop giving ourselves a hard time of what that is and why we have it within ourselves. As long as we know what it is, we'll know how to correct it within ourselves and know what it means in other people and why they do it. So I think it's going to be a good video for me to make eventually. That's not going to be my next video I'm going to make. Actually, maybe it should be my next video. I think so, like that. I think I'll do that. My next video, I would, because I am talking about red flags to look out for when you first meet somebody. If you're noticing these things, this is definitely things you need to watch out for so that you're not stuck in an abusive relationship. These are things you need to watch out for yourself. If you're doing this, that means you don't need to be in a relationship, and you need to heal these things in yourself before you could have a healthy relationship. So my next video is going to be on recovering from an abusive relationship. I have made plenty of videos on abusive relationships and talked about my abuse. I am still dealing with a lot of body injuries due to a very abusive relationship from like over 6 years ago. So we are always recovering. I mean, there's no like that one thing you could do and all of a sudden the next day you're just healed from it. It takes steps. So my next video, I am going to talk about some steps to recovering from an abusive relationship and my experience of recovering from abuse as well. And then I'll also touch base on a video after that on dealing with jealousy within yourself and within other people. So don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel at Mind of Ro. I hope everyone is safe and secure tonight. Uncle Uchasaneb, namaste, odabo, peace.